In this episode of Moviewallas, we talk about How to Train Your Dragon 2025 and Materialists. It's time for Moviewallas. Hi, this is Joe.
This is Rashmi.
And Yazdi as well.
Moviewallas is your weekly dose of film reviews, movie news, and general banter in theatres, on DVD, online streaming, or in the back of an airplane. If you love the movies, this show is for you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Woo!
Good Lord.
That was a sad woohoo.
That was better. That was a half-hearted whoop. And you've even had a margarita.
I've had a spicy mango margarita, which was more spicy than mango. But
was it more spicy than margarita?
Yes.
I had one of those at the AMC the other day. They gave us cocktails for one of the movies.
2 movies.
A couple of movies.
Yes.
And all I had was sugar and no alcohol. I swear this thing was so sweet. And at the end of it, I think I had a sugar high rather than an alcohol buzz. I'm like, what's wrong with this? It was so sweet. I'm not a fan of super sweet cocktails.
Yes.
But anyway.
But it's good that they give out cocktails before a movie.
Yeah, we can be bribed.
I wonder if that changes our views.
Yeah, Joe was saying he thinks it does, but I don't think it does.
I don't think it does any harm. I mean,
right.
You arrive at the theatre, you
lick it up.
You have a little bit of an alcohol buzz going. All right.
And we need to get to the end of this episode in order to have some.
And that's true. Yes, it is indeed. Friday evening, I'm looking forward to my beverage of my adult beverages, as I tend to do on a Friday. Okay. 2 movies to talk about this week. We have How to Train Your Dragon, the live action interpretation, and then Materialists. So I'm really looking forward to both of those discussions. But before we go there, let's do our usual segment of I can't find anything to watch on video on demand. And this is where we tell you what's in our queues, what we've been watching, what we think you should watch, little gems that maybe you missed, etc., etc., etc. So, someone.
I will. Go ahead. After you.
Go.
Okay, so my recommendation is a movie which was nominated for Best Foreign Film last year. It should have won. It's a brilliant thriller. It's topical. It's of the time. It's set in Iran. There is a lot of news of Iran these days, but it's the amazing film, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which is now...
I love this movie.
Yeah, it may seem daunting to you. It is streaming on Hulu for free if you have Hulu, or you can pay a couple bucks and watch it at any of the other streaming services.
It's so good.
It's so good, and it starts off as a family conflict drama and then very easily escalates as a top rate thriller. Don't let the running time for the movie, it's a longish movie, don't let that dissuade you. Ideally, don't read anything about the movie before you watch it. Or if you do, it's fine. Just read it. Don't watch the trailer or anything. But really, if you bemoan that there's no good cinema, then see what has been done here. The Seed of the Sacred Fig. It sounds like a pretentious title.
It sounds like a Yorgos Lanthimos type title, but it's not. It's nothing. Maybe at the end, but it's very good. I love this movie so much.
Yeah, it's about everything. It really is about everything.
Patriarchy and expectations and family and everything.
I feel like it made one or both of your top 10s.
I think
it was my number 3 or number 2.
I think it was my number 2 maybe.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Great movie. Good recommendation there. And mine is something I kind of found by accident on Netflix. Again, don't let this put you off. It's actually a Hindi language crime drama series called Dabba Cartel, DABBA. New word cartel, as in drug cartel. And it's this really good series about a group of 5 middle-class women who are running a traditional lunchbox service in India. And unexpectedly, they become involved in a high-stakes drug operation using these lunchboxes to transport the illicit drugs everywhere. It's fantastic. It is created by Shabani Dandaka Akhtar. It stars Shabana Azmi, who is, she's like the Meryl Streep of Indian cinema.
And has been for a long time.
Yeah, Jyotika, Shalini Pandey, a whole bunch of others. But this is such a thrilling series. Like, I just could not wait to finish this season, and I really hope there is a season 2. Dabbar Cartel on Netflix.
I've seen the first 2 episodes, which were great, and I need to catch up with it.
It just gets better and better, Yazdi. Like it's got that. I said to Joe, it was like almost a kind of a Breaking Bad, Soul type. Where they write themselves into corners, and you just think, how are they going to get themselves out of this tight corner? So good. Joe, what's yours?
Well, I'm not going to recommend Severance season 2, and I'm only
Joe's cheating again now. Joe's doing a Yazdi.
I'm only saying that because
it was
Rashmi
awful.
and I struggled through. Severance season 2 has had incredible critical reviews. We struggled so
I gave
much.
up.
Rashmi actually bailed, and it's very
bailed.
rare that you bail.
Yeah,
on a season
I never
partway
bail.
through.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a non-recommendation, but I did get through it, and I'm just telling you now, I don't think it was worth it. What I will recommend instead, I know.
I've trained you well, Joe.
No, it's horrible.
I mean, I was
You
really,
guys.
I was there with a pitchfork at the end, yelling at the screen. I was like, "What are you doing?" Okay, what I will recommend instead, just quickly, is The Long Way Home on Apple TV. So if you have an Apple TV subscription, ignore Severance and instead choose Long Way Home. In fact, I'm not going to recommend Long Way Home yet. Long Way Home is the 3rd season of a motorbike
4th, I think.
journey, 4th season of a motorbike journey by Ewan McGregor and his friend Charlie Borman as they embark on trips around the world. So Long Way Home is the latest installment, and they're basically driving south through the UK via Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Scandinavia. What I'm going to recommend today is Long Way Round, which is the very first season. If you have not seen this, and a lot of people haven't seen this, I bump into people all the time that I talk about this wonderful documentary. They made it about 20 years ago, and they went from London to New York east all the way through. So they went through Europe into Mongolia, through Siberia, the Road of Bones, through the United States. 10 episodes, fantastically edited. The more compelling viewing you will not find on TV. So if you have an Apple TV subscription, they've now bought the rights to all of the episodes. Go watch Long Way Round.
Yeah, it's a great, if you're not interested in motorbikes, it doesn't matter, because it's really about 2 people doing a journey and experiencing life
and the world and adversity.
Solo in essence.
And they get themselves into cultures and locations that are rarely seen. I mean, Mongolia is such a vast country, and
like Azerbaijan.
There are parts of it that are just inaccessible.
Yeah.
And they go through because the only way through is actually on two-wheeled vehicles. So you go into places where people live like they did hundreds of years ago.
Really good.
Okay, so let's recap. Yazdi, your pick was
The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which is streaming on Hulu.
Rashmi.
Dabbar Cartel, Dabba Cartel on Netflix.
And I'm just going to pause. Shabani Akhtar, who made the film, is the daughter-in-law of Shabana Azmi. So she's married. She's married to Farhan Akhtar, who brother and sister Farhan Akhtar and Zoya Akhtar, who themselves are exceptional filmmakers and writers. That whole family. So it's a family affair, which is great. Yeah.
And Shabana Azmi's husband is Javed Akhtar, who is an incredible writer.
Yes.
Excellent
Talent
stuff.
Beyond,
Yes.
what you
Reason.
should have. Yes.
And my recommendation is Long Way Round on Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Review time. Let's start then with How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay, so this is the 2025 live action version of the 2010 animation of How to Train Your Dragon. It has the same director, and it also, I realized, has Gerard Butler in the same role. But other than that, it's a whole new cast in 2025. And this is basically that lovely story of
Hiccup. and Toothless.
An ancient, as an ancient threat endangers both Vikings and dragons alike on the Isle of Berk, the friendship between Hiccup, an inventive Viking, and Toothless, a night fury dragon, becomes the key to both species forging a new future together. Joe and I unfortunately couldn't watch this, but Yazdi, you saw the live action version, which is written by Dean DeBlois and a whole host of others, and it stars Mason Thames, Nico Parker, Gerard Butler, and a whole host of others.
Can I also just add that I'm really scared to watch this because the original is so precious to me. So I'm really curious to see what you've thought of it.
And what are the changes, Yazdi? Are there any changes? Tell us that. And our dear little Clementina also watched this with you, Yazdi.
Rachel and Clementina, and I'll read Clementina's words in just a minute. Dean DeBlois was the co-director and co-writer of the original 2010 film. And like you, for me, the original How to Train Your Dragon animated movie is probably one of my favorite animated movies of all time. I have irrational love for that movie. Everything that movie is about resonates for me, the messaging of the movie. And so, these days Disney seems to be, and DreamWorks now, they seem to be, doing live action movies. We can ask the question why. I think the only question is there's money to be made, and also because I guess people have grown up since 2010 and they haven't perhaps been exposed to the animated version. But I'm here to tell you this movie is pretty much a shot-by-shot remake of the animated film. So nothing has been changed of substance.
That's a good and a bad thing.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because everything that made you well up in the original made me well up in the movie version.
More or less, though?
The same. The same.
We're still talking about an animated dragon ultimately, Rashmi.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about about how the animated movie was made is that it was, Toothless, the central dragon in that particular movie, behaved like a cat or behaved like a dog.
Yeah.
So if you have a pet, the expressions of Toothless, the movement of Toothless's relationship with Hiccup, it just, if you have a heart, your heart will be it'll grow five sizes bigger. So I think by virtue of making the dragon literal and 3D, for me, that was like just a tad of a step down. So I don't know if it didn't resonate for me as much in the live action movie because I know what that relationship is from the animated, or if there was something lacking there. It's very interesting that although the movie is almost a shot-by-shot remake, it's a good 25 minutes longer than the animated movie. And I think it's
interesting.
Because I think the original animated was 1 hour and 40 minutes. This is 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Gosh.
But I think it's because the action scenes have probably been, extended, and there's more, what you can do in
cinematography.
Right. What you can do in an animated movie, right?
Yeah.
In a live action, you have to kind of pace it a little bit slower so it looks looks real. I also like the fact that the movie does a lot of colorblind casting.
Okay.
So, there are people of Asian descent amongst the Vikings, and there are dark-skinned peoples amongst the Vikings. Hiccup's female love interest in the movie is played by a Scandinavian actress, whereas America Ferrera did the original voice work for it. Gerard Butler, like you said, is the only one who returns. I think, if the movie has to be also commented because they really found the exact physical representation of Hiccup in the actor Mason Thames. Mason Thames looks like Hiccup from the animated movie come to life.
Aww.
And, he's of the same age. He looks like him. His hair is like him. His body structure is like him. And, obviously this actor has taken a lot of effort to look and sound like him. So I think that really resonates. I was moved. I shed tears a couple times, but I shed tears about 5 times when I watched the original animated movie. Ultimately, I think this movie prevails because of the underlying message that you may have a long considered enemy that you need to give a second
Yeah.
chance to. And that's such a powerful message, be it one-on-one with friends, be it with family, be it with the state of the world right now where there are wars going on. Reconsider an enemy. Maybe they're not as bad as you seem, which is the message we need right now. So I'm very, very positive about this movie. I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10. It could have been a
Back
9.
up or back down?
I'm going to back up because I cannot think of how difficult it must have been to make a live action version, right? It's easy to show 15 dragons flying around in an animated version, but when you have to actually do it in a live action, granted you're still using CGI, but still the action scenes are so beautifully done. The costumes. There's
integrating the live action piece, the human stuff with all of that mayhem, it would be difficult.
And there's a lot of action in this movie. This is not Beauty and the Beast where it's just like, two people talking. There's
I remember there's that amazing scene when all the dragons are
swirling around.
Yeah.
So this is not like a movie made for a cheap buck, right? Just to get, make a quick, run to the bank. It's been put together pretty well. I still think the question remains why. Right? Well, I mean, we have an amazing, one of the best animated movies ever made. Why do we need a live action? But if they're going to make it, this one is not so bad.
Okay.
Yeah. And then let me read Clementina's notes from the movie.
That's right. We had an expert.
And Clementina always
protege.
comments. Yeah, our protege. Clementina always comes to us, joins us for movies that are relevant to her age group, and she joined us last time she was with us was for the live action version of Lilo and Stitch, and here she is for How to Train Your Dragon. So her overall feeling is that the movie was very well made. She said the special effects were very impressive, the sets were amazing, and mostly stayed true to the original, which I agree with. The costumes were also very well made. Hiccup at one time wears a hoodie, and I was like, really? They had hoodies at the time of Vikings, but then
but they didn't have dragons either, Yazdi. So I think the fact that you're complaining about a hoodie is
but then I reminded myself
misplaced.
No, but then I reminded myself. You think of monks, right?
Yes.
Monks had a hoodie. They wore a thing over their head which they slipped back. So hoodie goes back. So I corrected myself. It's
monks
fine.
Are badass.
Yeah, monks are badass. So there were hoodies. The other thing that Clementina mentioned is one thing I would change is I would make Rough Nut and Tough Nut more identical. And if you remember Rough Nut and Tough Nut,
they're twins. Yeah,
they're twins, and they're kind of the sidekicks. In this particular movie, they're played by two different actors. And then she said she loved it anyway. It had amazing actors, and she would see it again. And I kind of agree with her. I think this movie has a good heart. You could make the case that they missed an opportunity to update it or try something different, or, but maybe there's something to be said for if you have something good, don't mess with it. Just replicate it.
It's a decade old. It's hardly out of date. But I'm good. I'm glad they didn't botch it. And it's interesting. I'm looking on the Rotten Tomatoes page here, and the critics have been a little harsher than, not harsh, but there's 77%. Audiences love this movie. It is 98%.
Yeah, I saw 98%.
So it's clearly working well with its target audience, and count me among them.
I think people will have a problem with it only if they compare it with the animated. I think if you're going into this new, or if you watched it when you were a kid and you've forgotten, this one will really resonate.
But it's almost like any remake. I mean, any remake that you hold dear to you can never quite hold up.
Yeah.
It's
an impossible task.
The original. So maybe for those watching this for the first time, they will have that moment that we all had with the original.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So movie number 2 this week is Materialists.
I think I'm doing the intro
I'm
to that
happy
one.
to do it.
I can do it. Okay. So this is a young, ambitious New York City matchmaker finds herself torn between the perfect match and her imperfect ex. This is from my favorite last year, Past Lives 2 years ago. Celine Song, and it stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal, and a whole host of others. Is this the modern day rom-com? Joe, why don't you start us off? What did you think of The Materialists?
I held Past Lives in very high esteem, as did the two of you. I don't think it quite impacted me in the same way as you two, but I did find it a very wonderful, wistful movie. And it's the kind of thing that had such a light touch to it that I was worried that going into Materialists, when I realized it was Celine Song again, that kind of magic doesn't always work twice. Like, you have a story, you've crafted it, you've honed it, you've polished it, you get your first big shot at a feature and you make something very special, but can you do it again? Yes, you can. For me, this is not the same movie at all. This is a wonderful exploration. It's like a dissected, deconstructed rom-com of sorts with a very modern take on lots of different things. I think this movie had a lot of clever things to say. I didn't agree with a lot of the things that it had to say, but it did have a lot of things to say, and that's saying something about a movie which is ostensibly set up as kind of a comedy, but it is a lot deeper in that. So I really like this movie. I love the performances. I think the dialogue was sharp, and it's very memorable. I think this is one that's going to stay with me for the rest of the year.
Okay. Yazdi.
Yeah, so, Past Lives is probably one of my favorite movies from the last 10 years. I hold it in such high esteem. I've seen it in the theater twice. Can lightning strike twice again, right? You asked the question. I don't think it does. So this movie is no Past Lives, but nothing can be. I think Past Lives was such a wistful, delicate, tender, it's the kind of thing somebody's written a story for their whole life and brought it to fruition. I think Celine Song is playing in a much bigger dimension here. This is an exceptionally glitzy looking film. The production design is ridiculous. Like the homes in New York City and the places they go to and the parties. So clearly she's playing with more money. And she's obviously been able to bring in, top actors. I mean, I think most people, they don't know anything about Celine Song. They're going to go watch this movie because it's a love triangle between Pedro Pascal, Chris Evans, and Dakota Johnson. That's going to be the drive for bringing it in. Mm-hmm. I still love this movie, and I think it feels like a piffle, but it's not. I've been thinking about it so much since I watched it, and the more I think about it, the more it grows in esteem. Because it's exactly what you said, Joe. What Celine Song has done is she's kind of deconstructed the romantic comedy. She's kind of, I would argue, this movie is not even a romantic comedy. I think it's a drama which is kind of playing within the playground of romantic comedy, but it has much bigger aspirations. And actually, at one point, it gets very serious. Yeah. There's some of the issues it deals with, are pretty, they're not, you won't find them in a romantic comedy. I think these actors are great, and we can talk some more about it. But I think ultimately, I really like this movie because of the writing. And again, it's Celine Song. She's amazing. I like that this movie asked the simple question, should you get married to somebody if they are going to make the rest of your life comfortable and you're going to have, a wonderful partner who's always going to support you and you never have to worry for wealth? Or should you just be reckless and marry the person who makes your heart beat twice, even if that person drives you insane and that person may not be the most stable person? And it gets at the crux of, why people get married. And, the movie ends a particular way, but I don't think it's taking a position. It's saying you are perfectly rational following either one of those choices. So I really like that it's touching on all of these things in a very glitzy, gorgeous looking movie. Like, this is the kind of movie, I'll finish in a second. This is the kind of movie where everybody wakes up from bed looking like, makeup was done for 3 hours on them. Nobody looks bad in this movie because it's playing in that rom-com playing field. But it's a great film. Go on.
So I agree with most of what you both said. I think the aversion I have to this movie is that it's listed as a as a romantic comedy. It's not a rom-com.
It's marketed as a romantic.
It should be marketed as a drama with some funny moments, because that would have changed my whole perspective of the movie. It's no past lives. So again, my expectations of what I was expecting from Celine Song was so high and so unachievable. And so just for that reason, it didn't resonate as much. And I've done a lot of reading about what people have been writing about how the movie ends. And people are really angry about the movie because I guess it's millennials, right? No, it's Gen X. No, we are X. It's not about millennials. Gen Z would not have made the choice that Dakota Johnson makes in the movie, right? It's a different paradigm. And I was reading some really interesting stuff about that. So I wish that it had gone a little deeper into why the decision she made, and a bit more exploration of that, because it felt like we were going down a path and then very abruptly we changed paths. So it didn't make sense to me that this person who hasn't had this ex in her life for so many years is suddenly taken by him, right? And so it was a little disappointing from that perspective. So I wish that there had just been a little bit more time in the middle. It felt like there was a great setup. I love the setup. It's so glitzy and glamorous. And I love the way that she represents what she's doing. And she's a matchmaker. And she's so married to her morals and her idea of love. But then it doesn't play out that way for me. So a little disappointing from my perspective.
Look, I mean, I think what we've got here is a modern exploration of gender dynamics.
Yeah.
And this somewhat old-fashioned idea that, and this is, I've got to tread carefully about it. This notion that women marry across and up versus marrying down.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of that in here, especially in the dating.
Totally. And I love how it's broken down.
And it's explored beautifully by the various different
dates
that occur within the dating service. It talks a lot about modern day difficulties of, I think women kind of, people, I guess, waiting to get married later in life and then struggling to find like the right person. But I love how it kind of picks all of that apart. And I can see why the ending might be controversial for some, because I think it's well, again, I don't want to get into spoiler territory, so I'll stay away from kind of saying which direction she takes. But I think it's done with an intelligence. This is a very, very smart script. That kind of lays out some ground rules about the Dakota Johnson character, and then pushes and tests at every weakness in her theory, and it's just very cleverly done. I actually found it very funny. So I'm surprised, Rashmi, you didn't find it as much of a comedy, because I think it was all done with high craft. I mean, just the clicking of the heels as Dakota Johnson walks down the street. Like, to me there was comedy in that, because it's excessively, like, the sound design in a movie like this is very remarkable.
I think what I couldn't get on with was how serious the Chris Evans character is. He's in a different movie to me.
But I think
and maybe that's
the rub.
Yeah, he is. But that's the rub for me, is that
more than a device.
He's playing a character in a different movie than the Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal characters. So that really ground on me a little bit.
I think they're both devices, both Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. They represent choices, right?
Correct.
For any woman, like, and repeatedly people say a marriage is a business transaction, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I love that Celine Song doesn't ascribe any judgment to it, or like shame on you for trying to marry a rich guy or somebody who makes you happy or any of that. And the other option is this reckless, stupid maybe immature love where somebody just makes your heart beat faster. So I think Chris Evans represents that. And again, and I completely acknowledge how it may feel like he's in a different movie, because he represents a very different ideal than what most of the movie is about. But to the writing, to give credit to the writing, her relationship with Chris Evans is flawed and terrible, and from the very beginning, messy. He doesn't represent this man, prince on a horse who's going to come and sweep her up. He is even more flawed than the others. So I think the movie just says in real life, there are no perfect choices. Like in her case, I'm being very careful about spoilers here, but I think. I think it's just presenting those two. I think Celine Song, the way I saw it, she's saying Dakota Johnson could be as happy with Chris Evans as she might be with Pedro Pascal, but she ultimately makes a choice, and you may or may not agree with that choice. But I think the movie's edict is that either choice is okay. That's how I saw it.
Oh, and see, for me, it doesn't feel like that. So watching it from my perspective, it definitely felt like there was one choice which was better than the other, and that she had got to a certain point in her life where she had already made a choice, and then she's faced with the choice again. And so, again, not to get into spoiler territory, which is so frustrating if you're listening or watching us. But anyway, I think, look, it's brilliantly acted. It's beautifully edited. It's got great set design. I mean, it's a very watchable movie.
Yeah, I mean, I love that there is an intelligence to everything, and I love that the best part in the entire movie was, she's a matchmaker, so she is meeting with prospective clients.
Correct.
And it's almost like when Harry met Sally.
Yes.
All these different clients she meets, and what they say in terms of what they want from their partner. That was just hilarious. And it wasn't like, ha-ha, kind of sitcom-y hilarious or in a Hallmark movie kind of way hilarious. It was truly hilarious because it was very real to what kind of expectations people have.
Yes.
I also like the fact that, Celine Song has this thing about people outside stoops of buildings, having life-changing conversations. You saw it in past lives. It kind of repeats here. I did not buy for 1 minute the fact that Dakota Johnson looks as great as she is and has that beautiful apartment in New York. And at one point she says she earns $80,000 a year.
You could not support that.
You couldn't support the rent for that from $80,000 a year.
Every penny of it and then some is what I read in that.
So there was some disconnect, but then I kept reminding myself again, you're not meant to look at this too literally.
Yeah.
It's playing with
it's
again,
a feeling.
The romantic,
it's a feeling.
How does Carrie Bradshaw?
Yeah.
And I also think all three actors are doing career best performances. I think a lot of people who are upset with the movie are upset with Dakota Johnson, and they think that when she makes that choice at the end, that she does, like you, that she doesn't make you believe that it just seems random. That one day she's like, I like coffee. Next day she's like, I'm going to go for tea after all. But I actually think there are long takes in this movie, and there are close-ups of all the actors the whole time. And all three actors are doing a lot of acting just with their faces.
Yes.
And I think I always have a soft spot for Dakota Johnson because I think she's not respected, but she's not appreciated. I think she's not a very versatile actress. She will always be Dakota Johnson in every movie, but she does good work.
She has never been so good here.
Yeah. She's good.
Yeah.
She was excellent in last year's Daddy-O, but this is a very believable portrayal of someone who is maybe a little more difficult to believe, and her performance is what gives us that.
Yeah. And Chris Evans hasn't been this kind of scratchy and
introspective
and almost lacking in confidence, right? It's a very dangerous role for him to take, and I think he does great. And I think people may disagree, the hardest role here might be Pedro Pascal's, because it's one of the hardest things to do on camera is to depict charm, and he just very, very effortlessly oozes it. You can believe why he's called a unicorn in the movie. So I think, again, the acting is brilliant. I can't wait to see what Celine Song does next.
Yeah. Okay, scores, Joe.
Look, I thought this was brilliant. I really did. I think it was sharply written, and I think the most fun I had in the movie was in Act 2 when we did explore a lot of the things that, these are debates that, are a very modern context. These are debates that we've had. Rashmi and I in particular, we kind of talk about this stuff when we observe relationships and people, and as we kind of go through life and understand, choices that people make and how they go. So this is a very interesting topic, and it's very, very sharply written. I really like this movie, and sure, people will knock the ending, but again, I think the ending is indeed the message of the movie.Maybe it didn't hit the way that the people might have expected it to hit, but I think that is in essence what the movie is trying to say about the messiness of everything. There is no black or white answer there. Everything's shades of grey. Everything's choices, compromises, and the script
not 50
really,
Shades of.
Well, that's but it's that messy, muddy, non-optimal. It's like it's like buying real estate. You choose the great house or the great location. Like what would it's something in between, which is a compromise of both. Like you have to pick in life, and this is what this is about. So I loved this movie. 9 out of 10.
Wow. Yazdi.
Yeah, I mean, the history of cinema, 100 plus years. What more is left to be said about the institution of marriage, right? It's been endlessly debated and torn apart, and I wouldn't want to base a whole movie on what marriage means in contemporary times, and yet Celine Song has put together her treatise on the state of the marriage right now, and she has something new to say. And I think most romantic comedy movies just be swept away by the man on the horse. And, she is very level-headed in her writing and saying through most of the movie that horse doesn't exist, that person doesn't exist, find your footing, find your bearing. And then again, you might have a problem with the ending, and I totally see it. But the very fact that she brings something new to the conversation is great. I fully agree with you. This is not a romantic comedy. It's a very serious drama, which is playing in the field of romantic comedy. It's glitzy. It's beautiful. So much of the movie is shot on location. So much in New York City. They all look like $1 million. I really enjoyed it. And again, the more I think about it, I will say when I came out of it, parts of the film felt a little flat to me. And because again, I had these ridiculously high expectations, but when I think back about it, my esteem for it goes 8.5 out of 10, which I'm going to back down to an 8. I actually want to go and watch this movie again in the theater because I want to see if how I sit with it again when I watch it again. It fascinates me so much.
Mostly enjoyable, interesting topic, beautifully acted and well put together. Just a bit disappointing for me. And I didn't like the end. So it's, my God, I'm struggling between a 6 and a 7. My gut says 6.
Okay.
6 out of 10.
Wow. Yeah, the responses to this have been very mixed. I'm looking at reviews here, and I think maybe it's a little bit of a marketing mismatch. I mean, the reviews are generally positive, but I can see that this movie has irked quite a few people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably why I love it. I'm annoying like that. All right. We're going to wrap up the podcast today. Thank you once again for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you that takes the time to download our little podcast and listen to our voices, and especially those of you that make it to this part of the podcast. Thank you very much for being with us here. So we'll have another podcast coming up soon. We're going to be talking about F1, the movie. F1R.
Sorry, it sounded like I was having a stroke.
And we will also be talking about Danny Boyle's 28
Is
years
that a
later.
reflection of how much you liked it, Yazdi?
We shall see.
No, I'm just excited for a movie about F1, which has been promoted very strong, pushed very hard by both the F1 and Apple TV.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it is everywhere right now.
It is.
If you haven't heard of this movie, you have been under a rock. You probably... Anyway, let's wrap up. We're going to get into recording that one now, so it'll be out not too long after this one. Do look out for it. Until our next episode, too many movies, too little time. A goodbye from me.
And me.
And me as well.